The dismissal, a quiet artist encounters disrespect. The heavy glass doors of Gallery Étoile swung open as Marcus stepped inside, clutching his leather portfolio tightly to his chest. He paused for a moment to take in the space. The gallery was pristine and cold, its white walls lined with abstract pieces illuminated by carefully placed spotlights. A faint hum of classical music played in the background, amplifying the air of exclusivity. Marcus felt a flutter of nervousness in his stomach, but he pushed it down. He was here to share his work, to take a chance, no matter how intimidating the surroundings seemed. Marcus wasn't flashy, he didn't wear designer suits or exude the polished charm of the gallery's typical clientele. His casual attire, a simple plaid shirt, jeans, and sneakers, did little to hint at the brilliance of his work. He had always let his art speak for him. Today, however, his quiet demeanor would become his greatest challenge. At the center of the gallery stood Karen, the owner. She was impeccably dressed, her tailored blazer and silk scarf screaming luxury. Her every movement carried an air of superiority. As Marcus approached, she glanced up from her tablet with a practiced smile, the kind reserved for people she deemed important. But her smile faltered for a split second when she took in Marcus's appearance. To her, he didn't belong here. "May I help you?" she asked, her tone polite but edged with impatience. "Yes, I'm Marcus," he began, his voice soft but steady. "I'm an artist, and I was wondering if you might consider exhibiting some of my work here." Karen raised a perfectly arched brow, her skepticism thinly veiled. "We're very selective about the artists we represent," she said, her words slow and deliberate. "Do you have an appointment?" Marcus shook his head. "No, ma'am, I don't. But I have my portfolio here," he said, holding it up slightly. "I think you might find my pieces interesting." Karen sighed, already disinterested. "Let me be honest with you," she said, her voice tinged with condescension. "Our gallery represents established artists, people with formal training and a certain pedigree. You can't just walk in off the street and expect us to hang your work." Marcus's heart sank at her words, but he refused to let the disappointment show. "I understand," he said. "But if you could just take a look, even at one piece, I'd appreciate it." Karen stared at him for a moment, then rolled her eyes and extended a hand. "Fine," she said, her tone dripping with exasperation. "Let's see what you've got." With care, Marcus opened his portfolio and placed a vibrant painting on the counter. It depicted a young boy sitting beneath a tree, his face illuminated by the golden light of a setting sun. The piece was rich in detail and emotion, the brushstrokes almost breathing life into the scene. Karen glanced at it briefly, her expression unreadable. "Well," she said after a moment, "it's colorful." Marcus's brow furrowed. "Colorful?" Karen smirked. "Yes. It's quaint. But it's not the kind of work our clients are interested in. They prefer something more modern. Abstract. You know, the kind of art that makes people think." Marcus bit his lip, struggling to keep his composure. "My work does make people think," he said, his voice firmer now. "It tells stories about resilience, community, and hope." Karen waved a manicured hand dismissively. "That may be true, but our gallery caters to a very specific audience. Your art, while heartfelt, doesn't align with our brand." Marcus carefully returned the painting to his portfolio. "Thank you for your time," he said, his voice steady, despite the lump forming in his throat. As he turned to leave, Karen couldn't resist a final jab. "You know, you might want to try some smaller community galleries," she called out. "They'd be more your speed." The words stung, but Marcus kept walking, his head held high. Outside, the city buzzed with life, the sounds of traffic and chatter filling the air. Marcus stood on the sidewalk, his portfolio clutched tightly to his chest, and let out a deep breath. Karen's words echoed in his mind, but so did a spark of determination. He hadn't come this far to be stopped by someone who couldn't see the value in his work. Her rejection was just another step in his journey, and Marcus silently vowed to prove her, and anyone like her, wrong. With renewed resolve, he walked away, ready to face whatever came next. This was just the beginning. Turning point, the artist's talent finds the right audience. The walk back to Marcus's modest apartment felt longer than usual. The sting of Karen's words lingered, replaying in his mind with every step. As he unlocked the door and stepped into the cramped, paint-splattered studio he called home, he let out a heavy sigh. The rejection wasn't new, he had faced closed doors before, but Karen's mocking tone had cut deeper than he expected. Marcus placed his portfolio on the workbench and sat down in his favorite chair, a threadbare recliner that creaked under his weight. Around him, the walls were lined with unfinished canvases, each telling a story he had poured his soul into. He stared at them, feeling the ache of being overlooked, dismissed, unseen. The decision to share. For hours, Marcus sat in silence, grappling with the idea of giving up. But something inside him wouldn't let go. He had always believed in the power of his work, in its ability to connect with people. If the gatekeepers of the art world wouldn't give him a chance, maybe it was time to take matters into his own hands. Grabbing his phone, Marcus began snapping photos of his paintings. He captured the vibrant colors, the intricate details, and the raw emotion embedded in each piece. Then, he opened his laptop and logged into his social media accounts, platforms he rarely used but now saw as his only lifeline. His fingers hovered over the keyboard as he thought about what to say. Finally, he began typing. Today, I walked into a gallery with the hope of sharing my work. I wanted to show the stories I painted, stories of resilience, hope, and the beauty of human connection. Instead, I was dismissed and mocked, because I didn't fit the brand. I've always believed art should be about more than pedigree or appearances. It should be about the stories it tells and the emotions it evokes. So here it is, my work, raw and unfiltered. I hope it speaks to you the way it speaks to me. With a deep breath, Marcus attached the photos of his paintings and clicked post. He watched as the message went live, unsure of what to expect. Would anyone even care? Would his story resonate, or would it be lost in the sea of content flooding the internet every second? Feeling emotionally drained, Marcus closed his laptop and went to bed, trying not to get his hopes up. A spark ignites. The next morning, Marcus woke to the sound of his phone buzzing incessantly. Groggy, he reached for it and blinked at the screen. Notifications flooded in from every corner of the internet. His post had been shared hundreds of times overnight, and the numbers were climbing rapidly. Comments poured in, many from strangers who were deeply moved by his story and his art. This is incredible, your work is so powerful. I can feel the emotion in every stroke. Thank you for sharing this. Don't let anyone tell you your art isn't good enough. The world needs this. Marcus's heart raced as he scrolled through the messages. His work was finally being seen, and not just seen, but celebrated. For the first time, he felt a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, he had found an audience that truly understood him. The art critic's endorsement. Among the flurry of notifications, one name stood out, Claudia Rossi. Marcus's breath caught as he read her direct message. Claudia was a renowned art critic and columnist for The Creative Eye, a publication known for spotlighting groundbreaking talent. Her words were succinct but electrifying. Marcus, your work is extraordinary. I'd like to feature you in my column. Let's talk. Marcus couldn't believe it. Claudia Rossi had not only seen his post, but was offering to amplify his voice. They scheduled a call later that day, and when Marcus picked up the phone, Claudia's enthusiasm was palpable. Marcus, your story is exactly what the art world needs right now, she said. Your work, it's not just beautiful, it's meaningful. Every piece tells a story that resonates deeply. I want to help share that with the world. Over the next few days, Marcus worked closely with Claudia, providing her with images of his paintings and the backstory behind each one. When her article was published, it was nothing short of transformative. Titled The Artist Who Paints the Soul of Humanity, the piece described Marcus as a visionary, highlighting the raw emotion and storytelling in his work. Marcus's art is a masterclass in vulnerability and connection. His pieces invite the viewer to step into another's shoes, to feel the pain, joy, and triumph of the human spirit. In a world obsessed with trends and exclusivity, Marcus reminds us of art's true purpose: to connect us to ourselves and each other. The article spread like wildfire. Social media platforms lit up with praise, and Marcus's inbox was flooded with inquiries from collectors, galleries, and admirers from around the globe. The world takes notice. Overnight, Marcus became a sensation. Collectors scrambled to purchase his pieces, often bidding against each other in private online auctions. Galleries that had once ignored him now clamored to feature his work. Museums reached out, offering to include his paintings in prestigious exhibitions. One of Marcus's most heartfelt pieces, The Dance of Hope, depicting an elderly couple waltzing in their kitchen under dim lighting, became a symbol of resilience and love. It sold for $1.2 million at a private auction, catapulting Marcus into a realm he had never imagined. But what truly moved Marcus wasn't the money or the fame, it was the messages from everyday people. Messages from struggling artists who felt inspired by his journey, from parents whose children found hope in his paintings, and from individuals who saw their own stories reflected in his work. A new path forward. Despite the whirlwind of attention, Marcus remained grounded. He remembered where he came from and the struggles that had shaped him. The rejection from Karen's gallery no longer felt like a wound, it was the catalyst that had propelled him forward. As he stood in his studio, surrounded by the warmth of sunlight streaming through the windows and the hum of opportunity buzzing all around him, Marcus made a quiet vow: he would use his newfound platform not just for himself, but for others like him, artists whose voices had been silenced, whose talent had been overlooked. The turning point had come, and Marcus had seized it. The world had finally discovered what Karen had failed to see: a quiet man with a loud, unshakable talent. The rise, Marcus becomes an overnight sensation. In the months following Claudia Rossi's feature article, Marcus's life transformed in ways he never thought possible. What started as a quiet artist's heartfelt plea to be seen had exploded into a global phenomenon. His paintings, once overlooked, were now the subject of fierce bidding wars at prestigious auctions. Art collectors and museums from around the world vied for a chance to showcase his work. Marcus, however, remained in awe of how quickly everything had changed. The world that once seemed so inaccessible had opened its doors wide, and he stepped through with quiet determination. The auction that changed everything. The pivotal moment in Marcus's rise to fame came during an international art auction in New York City. One of his most personal works, Threads of Resilience, a painting depicting a single thread connecting a series of hands, each one worn but strong, was featured as a centerpiece of the event. Marcus had initially hesitated to let the piece go, as it was a deeply personal reflection of his journey. But the auction house insisted, promising it would attract significant attention. Marcus attended the event in a tailored black suit, a gift from a close friend who insisted he look the part of the rising star he had become. As he entered the grand ballroom filled with the art world's elite, he couldn't help but feel out of place. Yet, as his painting was unveiled under a halo of light, all his doubts vanished. The auctioneer began the bidding at $500,000, a number that left Marcus nearly speechless. Hands shot up around the room almost immediately. 550. 600. 700. The bids climbed rapidly, each one pushing Marcus further into disbelief. The final bid came from a European collector at $3.8 million, a number that brought the room to its feet in applause. Marcus sat frozen, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. His art, born from struggle and hope, had not only found an audience, it had found its worth. Global recognition. The success of Threads of Resilience propelled Marcus into the international spotlight. Media outlets clamored to tell his story, framing him as the artist who redefined the meaning of modern art. His inbox overflowed with invitations to speak at events, participate in exhibitions, and collaborate on projects with some of the biggest names in the industry. Prominent museums, including the Museum of Modern Art in New York and the Tate Modern in London, reached out to Marcus, requesting exclusive exhibitions of his work. The Louvre invited him to Paris to discuss incorporating his pieces into their contemporary collection. Marcus traveled the world, attending gallery openings, giving interviews, and speaking about the inspiration behind his art. But through it all, he remained grounded, often declining the glitz and glamour of high-profile parties to return to his studio, where he felt most at home. A celebrity beyond the art world. Marcus's impact extended beyond the art world. His story resonated with people from all walks of life, those who had faced rejection, struggled to be seen, or simply sought inspiration. Celebrities began sharing his work on social media, with actors, musicians, and athletes praising the emotional depth of his paintings. One particularly poignant moment came when a famous actress, known for her advocacy work, commissioned Marcus to create a piece for her charity gala. The painting, titled Echoes of Change, depicted a lone figure standing on a mountaintop, surrounded by a swirling storm of color. It symbolized the power of one person to inspire transformation, and it became the highlight of the event, raising millions for underserved communities. Staying grounded amid fame. Despite the whirlwind of fame, Marcus remained deeply connected to his roots. He often reflected on his humble beginnings, the tiny studio apartment where he had spent countless nights, pouring his heart into his work. The rejection he faced at Galerie Étoile was never far from his mind, not as a source of bitterness, but as a reminder of how far he had come. Marcus made it a point to mentor young, underrepresented artists, offering them guidance and opportunities he had once only dreamed of. He established the Marcus Foundation for Emerging Artists, which provided grants, resources, and mentorship to talented individuals who lacked access to the art world's elite circles. In interviews, Marcus often spoke about his mission to break down the barriers that had kept so many talented voices out of the conversation. "Art belongs to everyone," he said during a live TV appearance. "It's not about who you know or where you come from. It's about the stories you tell and the connections you create." Challenges of fame. While the majority of the world celebrated Marcus's rise, not everyone was supportive. Critics emerged, questioning his rapid ascent and accusing him of being a media darling rather than a true artist. Marcus handled these critiques with grace, knowing that his work spoke for itself. "Art is subjective," he said during one particularly pointed interview. "Not everyone will connect with my work, and that's okay. But I create for the people who do, for the ones who see themselves in my stories." The artist, still at work. As Marcus's fame continued to grow, so did his body of work. He expanded into new mediums, experimenting with sculpture, mixed media, and even digital art. His studio, now housed in a sprawling industrial loft filled with natural light, became a haven for creativity. Despite the demands of his new life, Marcus never lost sight of why he began painting in the first place. His work remained deeply personal, each piece a reflection of his journey and the stories of those around him. One evening, as Marcus stood in his studio gazing at a newly finished canvas, he felt a profound sense of peace. The world had finally recognized his talent, but more importantly, it had embraced the stories he wanted to tell. He was no longer the quiet man dismissed by the gatekeepers, he was a force, proving that art, at its core, was about connection, resilience, and the undeniable power of the human spirit. Surprise, Marcus purchases the gallery in secret. Months had passed since Marcus's rise to fame, and his life was a whirlwind of success, creativity, and travel. Yet, in the quiet moments when the chaos settled, he often found his thoughts drifting back to Galerie Étoile. It wasn't bitterness that lingered, he had moved beyond Karen's rejection. Instead, it was a sense of unfinished business. That gallery had symbolized the gatekeeping nature of the art world, the kind of elitism Marcus was now determined to dismantle. One afternoon, while scrolling through art industry news, an article caught Marcus's attention. Once prominent Galerie Étoile faces decline amid financial turmoil. His eyebrows rose as he clicked the headline. The article described how the once prestigious gallery was struggling to stay afloat due to Karen's poor management decisions and an inability to adapt to the evolving art scene. Attendance had dwindled, artists had withdrawn, and financial missteps had left the gallery teetering on the brink of closure. Marcus leaned back in his chair, the corners of his mouth curling into a thoughtful smile. The irony wasn't lost on him. Karen, who had so confidently dismissed him, was now facing the consequences of her narrow vision. But as he read on, an idea began to take shape. What if he could save the gallery, not for Karen's sake, but for what it could become? The silent investor. Over the next few weeks, Marcus quietly set the wheels in motion. Through a series of intermediaries, he began negotiating the purchase of Gallery Étoile. He insisted on remaining anonymous throughout the process, ensuring that Karen wouldn't suspect a thing. The deal wasn't without its challenges. The gallery's debts were extensive, and its reputation had suffered significantly. Marcus's financial advisors questioned the wisdom of investing in such a failing enterprise. But Marcus remained resolute. "This isn't just a business decision," he explained. "It's an opportunity to transform something broken into something meaningful." Once the purchase was finalized, Marcus took his time planning his next move. He wanted the moment to be impactful, not out of revenge, but to send a clear message about resilience, growth, and the importance of seeing potential where others might not. The reveal. The day finally came for Marcus to visit Gallery Étoile as its new owner. Dressed in a sharp suit, he stepped through the familiar glass doors. The gallery looked almost unchanged since his last visit: white walls, carefully spaced paintings, and an air of exclusivity that now felt hollow. But the energy was different. The space was quieter, the once bustling crowds reduced to a trickle of hesitant visitors. Karen stood behind the counter, her posture less confident than Marcus remembered. Her polished appearance remained intact, tailored blazer, flawless makeup, but there was a weariness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. She looked up as Marcus approached, her professional smile flickering into confusion. She didn't recognize him immediately. "Good afternoon," she said, her tone polite but cautious. "How can I help you?" Marcus returned her smile, but there was a hint of something more, a quiet confidence that unnerved her. "Actually," he said, setting a stack of papers on the counter, "I'm here to talk about the future of this gallery." Karen frowned, picking up the documents. As her eyes scanned the pages, her expression shifted from confusion to shock. She looked up at Marcus, her hands trembling slightly. You're the new owner?" Marcus nodded, his gaze steady. "That's right." Karen's mouth opened and closed several times before she managed to speak. "But, why? How? I don't understand." Marcus tilted his head, his voice calm but firm. "Why? Because this gallery has potential that's been squandered by exclusivity and poor leadership." "And how?" "Well, let's just say I've done a lot of growing since the last time I was here." Karen's face paled as recognition dawned. The artist she had so confidently dismissed months ago now stood before her as the man who held the gallery's future in his hands. Karen's humbling moment. Karen started, but her voice faltered. She took a deep breath, trying to regain her composure. "Marcus, I didn't realize. If I'd known who you were." Marcus raised a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. "Who I was shouldn't have mattered. What should have mattered was my work. But you didn't give it a chance. You judged me before you even looked at it." Karen's shoulders slumped, her polished facade cracking under the weight of her guilt. "You're right," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was wrong. I let my biases cloud my judgment, and I dismissed you without seeing the talent right in front of me. I'm sorry, Marcus. Truly." Marcus studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he nodded. "I appreciate the apology," he said. "But words aren't enough. If you want to stay on as manager, things are going to change. This gallery will no longer be a gatekeeper for the privileged few. It's going to be a space for all artists, especially those who've been overlooked and underestimated, just like I was." Karen blinked, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I'll do whatever it takes," she said earnestly. "I know I don't deserve this chance, but I want to make things right." A new vision for the gallery. Over the next few weeks, Marcus worked closely with Karen to implement sweeping changes at Galerie Étoile. The first step was revamping the gallery's approach to curation. Marcus brought in a diverse team of advisors, ensuring that artists from all backgrounds and styles were given a platform. The gallery's walls, once dominated by abstract pieces catering to a narrow audience, now showcased a vibrant mix of works that told powerful, personal stories. Karen, humbled by the experience, threw herself into the transformation. She reached out to artists she had previously dismissed, apologizing for her past behavior and inviting them to exhibit their work. Many were hesitant, but Marcus's involvement lent credibility to her efforts. The grand reopening of Galerie Étoile was a resounding success. The gallery was packed with visitors, the energy electric as people marveled at the diverse array of art on display. Marcus stood in the center of it all, watching as the space that had once rejected him became a beacon of hope and inclusivity. Karen approached him, a genuine smile on her face. "Thank you," she said, "for giving me a chance to be part of this. I won't let you down." Marcus nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. "This isn't just my story, Karen. It's ours. Let's make it count." Redemption and transformation, a new vision for the gallery. The transformation of Galerie Étoile began with a single conversation, one that marked the turning point in Karen's life. Marcus, standing in the gallery that he now owned, offered her a chance, not out of pity, but because he saw an opportunity for redemption. Karen, humbled by the weight of her past actions, accepted, knowing this was her moment to rewrite her story. The offer. "You can stay on as manager," Marcus told Karen, his voice calm but resolute, "but only under one condition. This gallery must become a space where all artists feel welcome, regardless of their background, appearance, or connections." Karen looked at him, her eyes glistening with emotion. "I understand," she said softly. "And I promise, I'll do everything I can to make that vision a reality." Marcus studied her for a moment, searching for sincerity in her words. "This isn't just about words, Karen. It's about actions. This gallery needs to be reimagined from the ground up, and that starts with how we treat people. Are you ready for that kind of change?" Karen nodded firmly. "I am." Reflecting on prejudice. In the days that followed, Karen began a journey of introspection. She revisited the moments where she had dismissed artists, often based on surface-level judgments. Marcus's words echoed in her mind, forcing her to confront the biases she had allowed to dictate her actions for years. She thought back to the day Marcus first walked through the gallery doors, clutching his portfolio with hope in his eyes. She had seen only his casual attire, his quiet demeanor, not the passion and brilliance that lay within his art. The memory filled her with regret. Karen started reading books and attending workshops on implicit bias and inclusivity in the arts. She sought out conversations with artists she had once ignored, listening to their stories and learning from their experiences. It was a humbling process, but one that slowly began to reshape her perspective. Rebuilding the gallery. Under Marcus's leadership, the gallery underwent a complete overhaul, both physically and philosophically. The sterile, elitist aura that had once defined Galerie Étoile was replaced with warmth and accessibility. Marcus worked closely with Karen to curate exhibitions that showcased a wide range of voices, artists from marginalized communities, self-taught creators, and individuals whose work defied conventional norms. The gallery walls came alive with vibrant, diverse pieces. One exhibition featured a collection of paintings from immigrant artists, each telling a unique story of resilience and identity. Another showcased works by disabled artists, celebrating their perspectives and experiences. The gallery also introduced a Rising Stars program, offering emerging artists mentorship, resources, and a chance to exhibit their work alongside established names. Karen threw herself into the transformation, reaching out to artists personally and inviting them to contribute to the gallery's new vision. She became a vocal advocate for inclusivity, using her platform to amplify underrepresented voices. Over time, her genuine efforts began to earn her the trust of the artists and the community. A global hub for talent. the changes didn't go unnoticed. Word of Gallery Étoile's transformation spread, drawing attention from the international art world. Critics praised the gallery for its bold shift, calling it a revolutionary space for diverse artistic expression. Visitors flocked to see the new exhibitions, many of them moved by the stories behind the art. One particularly groundbreaking event was the gallery's first global exhibition, titled Voices Unheard. The showcase featured artists from around the world, each piece addressing themes of social justice, identity, and hope. It was a resounding success, drawing thousands of visitors and earning coverage from major media outlets. Karen, standing in the middle of the bustling gallery during the opening night, felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She looked around at the space she had once run with exclusivity in mind and marveled at how far it had come. For the first time in years, she felt proud, not of her status, but of the impact the gallery was making. Karen's redemption. One evening, after a long day of preparing for an upcoming exhibit, Karen approached Marcus in his office. "I just wanted to say thank you," she began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Not just for giving me a second chance, but for showing me what I'd been missing all these years." Marcus set down his pen and looked at her. "You earned this chance, Karen. I gave you the opportunity, but you did the work. You could have walked away, but you didn't. That says a lot." Karen smiled faintly. "I've learned more in these past few months than I have in my entire career. I realize now that art isn't just about trends or exclusivity, it's about connection, about giving people a voice. I let my biases blind me to that, and I'm sorry for the harm I caused." Marcus nodded. "It's not about erasing the past. It's about building a better future. And I think you're doing just that. A lasting legacy." Together, Marcus and Karen turned Gallery Étoile into a global hub for underrepresented talent. The gallery became a symbol of transformation, proving that even the most entrenched systems could change with the right vision and determination. Karen continued to manage the gallery with passion and humility, dedicating herself to the artists and their stories. Marcus, while still deeply involved, stepped back from the day-to-day operations to focus on his own art and philanthropic endeavors. The gallery flourished, attracting artists and visitors from all corners of the globe. Years later, during an anniversary celebration for the gallery's transformation, Karen stood beside Marcus as they addressed a packed crowd. "This gallery is more than a building," Marcus said. "It's a testament to what can happen when we open our minds and our hearts. It's proof that second chances matter." Karen, her voice steady and confident, added, "And it's a reminder that humility and growth are always possible. If I've learned anything, it's that change isn't just necessary, it's beautiful." The audience erupted into applause, their admiration for the duo clear. Marcus and Karen exchanged a look, a shared understanding passing between them. Together, they had turned a moment of rejection into a legacy of greatness.